Hi guys, it's Dom here from the British Esports Association, and today I'm joined by...
Frankie Ward, that's my name. Did you forget my name,
No,
Dom?
I didn't. I always like to do that in interviews, give the other person a chance to introduce themselves.
Excuses.
And obviously...
But consistent.
Exactly. You're a well-known host, Frankie,
thank you.
I wanted to talk to you. We're here today at the Excel Esports Neosurf Cup at Twickenham Stadium, and you're sort of doing a hosting role. Mm-hmm. You're sort of hyping up the crowd. Is that fair to say? Sort of introducing the casters and things like that.
Yeah, I'm stage hosting, so it was basically team walk-ons, pretty standard. But also, one of the things I really like to do when I am in a stage hosting role, or even a desk hosting role when there isn't an audience, when there's an audience there but no stage host, like at DreamHack opens, I want to go out to the audience and just make them feel like they're part of the show, because they really are. So it's like about hyping them up, making them feel comfortable. But then there's also admin like, hey, we've got this giveaway, I'm gonna break someone's heart and make someone's day. So it's just like that. It's a really fun role to do, and I think it was what I thought I would start doing when I started doing esports on camera work, but actually then I started doing more desk and now sideline as well. So actually I don't get to stage host very often.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because when I first met you, I was on a stage, I think at EGX, and you were helping me prep.
Yes.
And introduce like a little talk on grassroots esports in the UK, and you were at Twitch at the time.
Yeah.
And since then, like over the past 2 years, you've done a hell of a lot of jobs. And for those watching who maybe want to get into hosting and casting, and college students and school students, how did you sort of do that? I'm guessing you need a lot of determination. To
be honest, I think what you need to be talented, which makes it sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet. I think I'm good at what I do, though. You need contacts as well. It's networking. So I got into Twitch because I did League of Legends coverage for the BBC in 2015 at Worlds. And then I was like researching for that, because we were doing it on our own platform, and realised everyone watches this on Twitch. And I discovered Twitch, and then really wanted to work in gaming after that project and esports. And so I decided in January, so a couple of months later, to actually look into it. And Twitch had this job going. It didn't have a producer title, but it was essentially a producer. And then applied for it, didn't hear back for months. April, the interview process began. 5 interviews, and then I moved to Twitch in July 2016. Yeah, so it was intense, but it was amazing. And like basically, I didn't have enough budget to put hosts on stage for events like at EGX, where the shows were 3 days long, and like they could be 8 to 12 hours long. So I just pop up on stage occasionally, like your Insomnias and your EGXs. And then ESL UK, because they'd be my production team on these, they'd seen I could host, so they asked me to do a half-stone event, stage host in the Prem, and that was kind of where it really started. Before then, actually, I started doing Jinx TV. I'd done an interview with them about producing the Twitch stage at Gamescom, and they liked my energy on camera. Like, they knew who I was. I don't know how, but people sort of knew who I was in the industry in the UK, just from my producing work. I think production teams that I'd worked with had maybe spread the word a bit, which is very nice. Thank you, guys. So yeah, when I lost my job, because they closed like 40 jobs in one day at Twitch, luckily just me in Europe, I just used these contacts I had from being a producer and just said, hey, so I'm not a producer anymore, I'm going to try hosting. If you need someone, this is my show reel. So I didn't take advantage of those contacts or approach them and ask to present for them until that was what my focus was. So ESL UK approached me to host for them, as opposed to me going to them and being like, please hire me for a host. And that's the key thing. It's like, no matter what you do, no matter what role you're doing, just throw everything into it, be a good team player. And then if you do decide you want to change your role and start being on camera, for example, if those people know you have a good work ethic, they like you, so they want to work with you. And therefore, if you can then back up the reason why you should be that person, i.e. showreel, could be just you casting on your own stream at home, for example, then yeah, their chances are they might want to give you a shot.
So are you self-trained then as a host?
Yeah.
Are you telling me you didn't do a course?
No, I did BBC interview training when I was like an intern, but it wasn't like about being on camera. It was more about, I suppose the technique I developed was called charm and disarm, which is
you are charming on stage, I have to say.
So it's all about like getting someone feeling comfortable and like then making them spill their guts in front of you. Or you know what, then you can throw a curveball in. They feel comfortable with you, and then suddenly you can just be like, well, why did you lose that? But I'm not too harsh. When I first started out doing interviews in 2019, I did like one event as an interviewer before I did the major in Katowice in Counter-Strike. I was I could be like quite direct and things, and I've totally softened because I have to develop long-term relationships with players in a professional way. Thank you very much. So it is important for me to strike a balance. Like, I don't want to go too easy on people, but I'm a lot more open with my questions, and like I actively listen. I think that's one thing I bring to it. Not that other interviewers don't, but that was the one thing that I really took away from BBC interview training was you actively listen. Of course, plan out your questions and the structure of how you want to do things, especially when you've got 90 seconds, but be open to not like necessarily sticking to that line. Be flexible, because if they say something that's really interesting, like just pick up on it. So normally actually in interviews I say as little as I can, because it's not my job to tell the audience what happens. I want the player to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you adapt your personality, not your personality, but your sort of how you are depending on who you're talking to? Because players can be very different. There are some outgoing players and there are some players that are really in their shell and won't say much.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to not make them, I try not to be like, rah, this is my energy, I need you to be on my energy. I will try and be more in their space, I guess, their aura. Like, I'm not trying to make them me. So yeah, I mean, I learned from exit interviews doing my first ones at Katowice. Like, I was too like protective of the players there. Like, I had this player, Adrian, and he didn't know if he was on a temporary contract with FaZe. He didn't know if he was continuing with them after Katowice. Before the interview started, I asked if it was okay to ask him about it, and he said yes. But in that interview, I was too much of a cheerleader, and actually, like, that wasn't my job. My job was just to give him a platform. It wasn't my job to tell him everything was going to be okay, and so I definitely learned from that. So exit interviews are the one interviews where I just don't really plan. I just give them the floor, and I've watched the games, so in my mind I have some follow-up if I need it, but for me it's an opportunity for them to talk to the audience, to talk to their fans. I don't go in too hard on those anymore.
You've given us a lot of tips already, but for those students out there and young people that want to get a career in esports, whether it's hosting or casting or anything else really, what tips would you give them? I know it's a kind of a cliched question, but is there anything, any encouragement or direction you could give? So
you need to give yourself feedback, really. You need to do VOD review like players do after a match when they're going, okay, so what happened here? Why did we win this? Why did we lose this? What did we do well? What did we not do so well? So that's a really key thing, actually. Like, you have to learn to watch yourself. And so we often, with interviews, we do something called live to tape. So it lets the players get, especially if they're in the middle of a match, it lets them get back to the green room and do their coach talk or their the team room. So I will often grab a player straight after a map has ended in Counter-Strike and do the interview there and then, which means I have time to get back to the green room and watch the interview, make notes on what was said, because unfortunately after an interview, after we stop filming, I often forget things straight away, so I have to make notes on what has been discussed in interviews. So I'm terrible like that. Often running on very little sleep because we're in a different country, and I have it can be a bit hard like that. And asking for feedback from production is really important. Just being nice to work with. Don't be late for your call times. Obviously do say if you need something, but have a think about what production needs as well. Like, I want the producers to tell me what kind of tone they're going for. I have this thing, to be honest, where I'm seen as quite, I would say quite light, people maybe don't see that I'm serious. Like, I've seen comments about me from the public, not from people I work for, saying that they think I'm unprofessional, like this interview is more professional than she is, etc., etc. Actually, that's the wrong term. It's not that I'm unprofessional. It's that I make things seem casual. I make things seem very relaxed. Though, isn't it, whereas other hosts might be, interviewers might be a bit more formal. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that approach. My approach is just being that. Like, I am very much on camera. I'm pretty much the same as I am off camera, and so what you see is what you get. But it doesn't mean I can't also be serious as well. So I think one of the strong things about that is I have a brand. Like, people know who I am, and when you're cutting a show reel, just try and, it's not always about the best work you've ever done. It's about the work that shows the person who's hiring what they're going to get, and that's really key. So for me, I presented myself in that way, and that's probably why I get hired to do the things I do. But for me personally, I would like to do some more serious things as well. So if you've got any advice for me, let me know. Learn to be at ease with yourself, because things happen. This is live. What we do is so hard. There's only a couple of shows a year, maybe even one show a year where I do have an auto cue. Stage hosting is really hard because normally we don't have auto cues. We just have to go out there. You're just thrown out there. It's a really hard job. Yeah. So LEC, for example, they have amazing production meetings and they do have an auto cue for the desk. But when you're usually thrown out on stage, you don't. And actually, it can be harder than TV. TV, they have quite structured, very scripted kind of thing. One show a year I get to do that, a PC gaming show I've done for the last 2 years, which isn't technically esports, but I script edit. So even though I've got it in front of me, I've been part of that. I'm speaking my own words, being pre-written. It doesn't mean I can't go slightly off script if I don't want to, but it's quite structured. Whereas with esports, as long as you know your stuff, you've got it there, right? So I can go on stage or I can go into interviews and just, even though it wasn't, they can throw something at me that maybe I wasn't prepping for, but because I have the knowledge, I'm ready to respond. So research, do the thing that you think you're strongest at, or the thing that you enjoy doing most, and just focus on that, work on that, rather than trying to go everywhere. If you get asked to do something else, then take that opportunity, like I did with desk hosting, and then I found actually really enjoyed it, right? Same with interviews. Did it once, really enjoyed it. When someone asked me to do it again, I was like, yeah, I'm capable of doing this. But yeah, just find the thing you really want to do and focus on it rather than trying to be everywhere.
Just lastly, we set up a Women in Esports campaign for British Esports Association, and I've said this before the interview, some people are like, why are you making it a big deal? But there is still a lack of female representation at the player level. We don't have as many females playing in the championships as there are guys, but it's improving. We do have an all-female team. We do have a few females playing in there. Do you have any comments on this and, female representation in esports at the moment? I feel like things have improved a bit over the past year or so.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is I'm 31, so I don't know what it's like for teenage girls, for example, finding people to play with now. When I was playing, it was genuinely only really played on LAN. I don't think you really got to play much online at all, actually. You know what? No, my boyfriend at the time did play Battlefield online, Battlefield 2. I bought it for him because I was the best girlfriend evs at 16. Maybe I'm terrible now because I'm never bloody home, my poor boyfriend. But yeah, finding people to play with is a bit easier now because you can go online. The hardest thing is, of course, you get comments. I get comments, right? So when I'm playing Counter-Strike, listen, I'm Silver 3, but I still top the server. And if people listen to me, because I know my strats, then, we do all right. But I still get abuse. And they're just like, how can you be a caster when you're a Silver 3? I'm like, well, you're also a Silver 3. So, right, it's really hard. It's really hard. So you can mute people and just, play your heart out. And then if you're good, then you get noticed. But it's a long slog. And it's really hard because, as a woman, I think, sometimes it can be demotivating because you think, but no one's going to want to play with me at the end of the day. I can be the best player in the world and no one's going to want to play with me. If you're the best player in the world, then people are idiots not to play with you. So,
but those comments, are they based on your skill, or do they know? Is it because you're a woman as well?
It's based on my voice. And once it starts, it can be really hard to shut that off and keep playing, right? But the thing is, if people do that to you, then the team's not going to play as well. Because you're part of a team, even if you've only just met these people on voice chat. So it's not your fault. And you just have to persevere and keep going. And then occasionally what will happen in multiplayer, random queue, solo queue, you will actually find people that you really click with. Just add those people and start playing with them, start ranking up with them. And then, if you are good, if you start playing ranked systems like Face It, then you potentially were going to get noticed. But there are some organisations, I remember when Gaguri didn't get picked up at the start of Overwatch League by a team, and they said, oh, it's because she wasn't a good fit for the team. And maybe she wasn't, but I do think we need to start seeing more mixed rosters because when she did come into Shanghai Dragons, there must have been so much pressure on her shoulders because suddenly she's representing all women, right? It's a hard thing, and it's that whole... it's hard for other women to go, right, okay, I'm going to be the thing. It's the typical phrase, being the thing you can't see. So there are some women out there who are essentially going to go out on that stage and not be like martyrs, but they are going to really break the glass ceiling for other women. They're going to inspire other women to play because they're showing that it can be done. And it can be done, but it's also a cultural thing as well. It's just getting to start playing at an early age, getting to feel part of teams at an early age, learning that team synergy and all that kind of stuff. So I think it will change. I'd like to see mixed rosters. I mean, all female rosters are absolutely fine. I'm not bothered really about what gender, what representation there is in the roster, as long as they can win. So therefore,
yeah, same.
Yeah, you have to fight very hard and you have to play very well. when I go out on stage as a host, there is a part of me that's conscious. I'm like, right, I definitely want to make sure that I'm representing and doing great work. Even though I'm representing myself, there are some incredible women in this industry, like in terms of hosting and things like that. We see each other and we support each other, even if we're not working the same show together. Like we recognise, and if you're a female player and you're doing really well, there are going to be women that recognise that, and you're instantly going to have allies. So that's a long way of me saying, please keep going. If you want to be a pro player, do it.
No, that's really good, and you've packed a lot in there. I
have rambled so much.
I could talk to you for a lot longer, but I know you've got to go and eat your food as well. I've stopped you eating your food, so sorry about that. But thanks
I've got
very
stuff
much.
in my teeth. I don't normally have like brown, like the tortillas. They're not naturally there. They're there because I put them there, and I forgot to remove them before the interview. So, but it's still tasty.
Thanks very much,
Thank you.
Frankie. All the best.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you.
Good luck in the last few games.
Yeah, thank you.